Hey everybody, it's John from Seattle Coffee Gear. I'm here today doing a crew comparison of the R58 Cinquantotto from Rocket Espresso and the new Silvia Pro from Rancilio. We've already done some videos on the Silvia Pro. We did a crew review for it, and then we also did a crew comparison against the original Silvia. So make sure to check those videos out if you have any questions. On paper, these are fairly similar machines to start out with. The biggest similarity between the two would be that they are both dual boiler machines, but the similarities start to fall away pretty quickly there. They do both have shot timers. As you can see, well, if I start this one, it counts, whereas on this one, it has the little built-in shot timer like Rocket's been doing, which really helps the aesthetic. They both have dual PIDs on the boilers, so I can change the temperature of the brew and steam boiler from here on the Rancilio and from here on the Rocket. They both have hot water spouts. You can steam and brew on at the same time on both machines, so functionality-wise, they are very similar. Let's talk a little bit about the programming on each machine. Technically, both machines do have auto-on capabilities, but as we discussed in the crew review for the Silvia Pro, the auto-on for this machine is pretty limited. So it kind of works like an old school drip coffee pot where you would set it for when you want it to come on the next day. So like my parents used to do, they would, before they go to bed, they'd grind their coffee, put it into the drip coffee pot, and then set it to come on the next morning. On the Silvia Pro, whenever you turn it off, you just set how many hours from that off point you want it to come on at. So say you wake up and pull your last shot at 10 a.m. So then you just count how many hours until say 6 a.m. when you want it to come on, and that's how you set the auto on. The Rockets works a little bit differently. You have a menu that you can get into, and it has a calendar with 7 days a week that you can program the auto on and auto off, and you get 2 settings per day. So if you want it to start in the morning, come on at 6 a.m., half an hour before you wake up, so it's fully at the temp, and then turn off around 10, so then it's not wasting energy throughout the day. But then maybe you want an afternoon or an evening espresso, you can have it set to come on a second time and go off a second time during the day, and you have 7 different days for a full schedule. So as you can see, you can go Monday through Sunday and set all of those. And then you also have a copy and paste function, which is super handy. So programming wise, I'm going to have to give it to the Rocket, which you kind of expect just comparing the price points of these two machines. But let's talk a little bit about functionality and just drink making experience on both of these machines. One thing to think about with the Rancilio is that it is still a vibratory pump machine. So if you're brewing, it is pretty loud. Keep that in mind. On the Rocket, because it's a rotary pump machine, it is much quieter to operate. It's just kind of a low hum, so it works. It's just easier to use in the morning. You're not going to wake up your whole household using it like you might with the Silvia. But again, you'd probably expect that coming from that price point to this price point. And you can see those by clicking the links for each of these in the description below. Another perk of the Rocket is that the steam wand and the hot water wand, they're both insulated. They both have a little silicone tube running inside them. So the steam wand gets warm, but it doesn't get hot. This steam wand is not insulated, so you have the rubber grip on there so you don't burn yourself. Same for the hot water tap, not insulated, but you're really not moving that around much anyways. One thing that I do think the Silvia does a bit better than the Rocket is the Rocket does have this more, not like old school, but it's just the way Rocket's been doing it, where you just have 2 holes for the steam tip, and they go out at a little bit of an angle, but if you're used to steaming on a more commercial machine, like if you're a barista and you're getting this machine for your home, or you used to work at a cafe, the Rancilio steam tip it's a little dirty, apologize, is going to be more of what you're used to. It has those 4 holes and they're going out at more of an angle. So more similar to a commercial Rancilio or a commercial La Marzocco. So for steaming experience, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but just based on that, I think I would probably prefer to steam milk on the Rancilio, but I do prefer the steam knob design of the Rocket over the Rancilio. Also, you get a bit more range of motion with the Rockets. The Rancilio's is very good. It's better than the original Silvia, which is what we discussed in the crew comparison there, but not quite as good for range of motion when it comes to the Rocket. The Rocket, because it has the classic E61 group, you can do a little bit of pre-infusion if your water tank is full or if it's plumbed in. You can also do kind of a post-infusion ramp down with the E61 group. You're very limited as to what you can do with the Silvia. It's pretty much just a start-stop switch. I did notice that the Silvia Pro does have a lower flow rate than the Rocket does. I believe there's a smaller flow restrictor in the group, so your shots might take a little bit longer to extract than it would on the Rocket. They'll taste very similar, but I've noticed that if you don't use the pre-infusion and post-infusion on the Rocket, you might get a little bit more bitterness if your shot times start to get long, more so than you would on the Silvia. This one is set in Celsius right now, and the Rocket is set in Fahrenheit. I have this set to 206 degrees, but Fahrenheit, but let me change it. Okay, so I'm running at 97 here. Let's drop that to 96. And now we're going to be brewing at the same. To compare the espresso on both of these machines, we're going to be doing a single origin coffee from Guatemala, from Espresso Republic. Very tasty. It's a natural process, so it's definitely got a bigger body to it. It's a little bit sweeter, not so much of that bright, vibrant acidity. I've been really enjoying it on each of these machines, so let's pull some shots. On each of these, as standard, they'll come with the dual spouted portafilter, and then you'll also get a single spout. Both of these come with the Italian style 14-gram baskets. So it might be a little bit dirty. Nope, we're good. So they both come with the Italian style 14-gram baskets, which for most of us in the US, we're going to promptly swap out for something else, either an 18-gram basket, or you're going to be using a 21-gram basket with a bottomless portafilter like this one here. Had that sitting on top of the machine so it would warm up. And then this has the same basket in it. This is just our Seattle Coffee Gear portafilter. Works with this machine, Rockets, pretty much any machine. Check the compatibility on our site there. Let's just flush some water through each of these to make sure they're nice and warm. Because they're bottomless portafilters, I'm not as worried about them being perfectly up to temperature, because really the only part that's touching the coffee is the basket. So let's go ahead and get some coffee dosed. And I'm using the Eureka Mignon Specialita today in chrome. And I've been dosing about 20 grams with this. And because this is a lighter roast, I'm going to be pulling some pretty big shots. So looking at about 20 grams right on the button. Got that. Set that there. I'm going to be doing a higher output for these shots. So kind of like a 1-to-3 ratio. Let's see our consistency there. We're a little bit short. That'll work. Just a 1/10 of a gram over. All right, so I have 20 grams dosed in each of these, and as you can see, tamp is actually pretty level in both. I'm using the same basket in both. It is a triple basket, fits in these bottomless portafilters, and I'll put it in the machine. Get it all loaded up here. Get my scales. Now I have a feeling that the Rocket's going to pull faster, so I'm going to start the Silvia first. And let's see what happens. Fit and finish wise, while those are pulling, I'd say the Rocket is pretty far ahead, as you can just look at it, than the Silvia. You would hope so at these price points, obviously, as I've said many times during this comparison, but you definitely see it. The build quality on the Rocket is quite a bit better. Okay, at 55 on that, and 55 over here. Got 33, and then that one was right around 32, I believe, before it shut off. You'll be able to see in the video probably better than I could, but let's go ahead, drop these down, and see what we're at. Some full shot glasses. All right, I've had a lot of coffee already today, so drink a little bit more just for you all. Start out with the Silvia here. I'm interested to see the difference between these two machines. Neither of them is a saturated group, but it'll be interesting to see the Silvia style group versus the E61 style group to see how the temperature changes. The offset to both of these is built in, so the temperature that you see on the screen, based on the calculations done by the manufacturers, is accurate to what's actually happening at the groups. So just a quick note there. Yeah, I definitely get some of like that, like vanilla, some of the, almost like a cinnamon note in that, but let's taste it. Man, the citrus comes through that, but it's like a smooth citrus, almost like a key lime pie with like a little bit of like the vanilla on top of it. And the Rocket, yeah, smells pretty similar. Might smell a little bit more of the vanilla in this one versus the cinnamon in that one. I get more of a syrupy body on the Rocket than I do on the Silvia. And that's interesting. I'm not sure that one is head and shoulders better than the other. I think I might lean a little bit more to the Rocket. I think it's a little bit more developed. There's a little bit higher extraction on the Rocket, probably due to that higher flow rate. I'm not saying that that's a better or worse thing, but for this specific coffee and how we were brewing, it did make it taste a little bit better on the Rocket than it did on the Silvia. Before we were filming this, when I was dialing it in, I did try doing some of the pre-infusion and then like the post kind of ramp down with the same coffee and the same parameters. And I liked it a little bit better than I did with this. It kind of the sweetness shone through a little bit more. Still had the syrupiness, but didn't have that over extraction note at the end of it. So that's a big point to the Rocket over the Silvia. But again, price point wise, you just got to figure out what's good for you. Let's go ahead and pull some more shots. We'll steam some milk, pour some latte art, and we'll show those side by side so you can see what it looks like as a finished product. And I'll give you my impressions after I steam on both machines. So let's get set and we'll do that. Let's go ahead and make a little cappuccino. I have 20 grams dosed again. I'm going to pull this a little bit short just so I have more room to use my milk. And I'm using the not neutral clear cups. This is the Cortado one. It's like 4.5 ounces. Swap that up there. Let me purge my steam wand. And then I have the fellow Eddy pitcher in graphite. This is the smaller sized pitcher. Got a good temp on that. I'm gonna stop that there. Purge this. Pour off some milk. And let's see what we can do with this. All right. Ignoring my shaky caffeine-fueled hands. So here we have our little Rosetta on top of this cortado here. The milk quality is pretty good. I did notice while I was steaming that it was kind of hard to get rid of some of the bigger bubbles inside the beverage. We'll show a side-by-side shot of each of the drinks towards the end of this once I've finished steaming on the rocket. But that's what it looks like as a Rosetta in a cortado glass off of the Silvia Pro. Let's go ahead and steam some milk and pour some Latte Art on the R58 here. Looks good to me, 23 seconds. And let's see what we can do with the R58. Alrighty, man, I am shaky today. So there is our pour on the R58. Funny enough, even though earlier I was saying that I like steaming on the Silvia Pro better, I actually found it easier to get better milk texture on the R58 than I did on the Silvia Pro. But we'll show these side by side here, and you can kind of tell based around the bubbles on the outside, my texture on the R58 was a little bit better than it was on the Silvia. Set those off. All right, so that was the crew comparison between the Silvia Pro and the R58 Cinquantotto. I did want to have a few closing thoughts on these two machines. One thing I didn't mention earlier was just in the water tanks. So as you notice, this one's calling for water right now. I'm not sure if that's because the water reservoir is empty or because the sensor is floating weird in the tank. That is one thing I've noticed on the Silvia Pro, is that the water sensor in the tank does float weird sometimes, and it'll tell you need water when you don't. Not the smoothest system because the pipes come up and over into the water tank. I'll show you that here. So the water pipes come over and into the water tank. That also means it's a little bit trickier to refill if you have it underneath a counter or something like that. You can't pull it out. You have to get a pitcher and fill it with a pitcher. So keep that in mind. The rocket design is pretty nice. It just pops out and has a little seal on the bottom. So one thing that I guess could happen is, I mean, if one of your seals or leaks or something goes bad here, it does have the potential to leak. It's not something that we see commonly on these machines, but just mentioning that. So I put it back in there. And then it has a little sensor in the bottom of that works really well. It sends a small current through the water to tell if there's water in it or not. It doesn't really ever give you a false reading unless you're using RO, reverse osmosis, or distilled water that doesn't have enough mineral content in it. So That was my last note on those. Either of these would make a great home espresso machine. I think the R58 is more in the last machine you're ever going to buy category than the Silvia Pro is. Just the little features like the rotary pump, the build quality, the programming on it makes it a little bit more livable day to day than the Silvia Pro. But that's what you kind of expect for a machine that you're paying so much more for. The Silvia Pro isn't a bad machine. It's a great dual boiler for the price point it's at and the programming that it has, but it doesn't really stack up to the more expensive machines based on our testing and my thoughts here. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you think one is better than the other, why you would buy one or the other, let us know. If you have questions about the machines, drop us a comment down below. I'll do my best to get back to you down there. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos with both of these machines. Subscribe. Bye.